Welcome to rural Crossroads. Butler County is the largest county in the state of Kansas at 1,440 square miles, bigger than the state of Rhode Island. Tonight we're going to discuss the history of El Dorado.
El Dorado was platted in 1868 and officially incorporated September 12th of 1871. However, the origins of El Dorado can be traced back to 1857 when a Captain Joseph Cracklin and a group of 15 free soil men founded the El Dorado Town Company. This group traveled from the Lawrence area to what we now know as El Dorado and put a settlement at the confluence of the Old California Trail and the Walnut River.
The term El Dorado means golden land, and certainly in some parts of the United States they pronounce it El Dorado, but here we call it El Dorado. So tonight join us as we discuss the history of El Dorado.
Started with a group of kind of immigrant aid society people from back east who came to Kansas territory. They came to Lawrence, Kansas, and there the group of men kind of formed a town company party. And we haven't identified all the names of the men in that party yet, but some of the prominent men were Captain Joseph Cracklin, and he had been the leader of a militia called the Stubbs Company, and he was sort of the military leader of this group to help them scout where they wanted to go. And another prominent figure was Samuel Charles Stewart. He had come with his two daughters from Michigan and was really on a search to establish new towns on the frontier. And when they got to Kansas, really became involved in the Free State movement and wanting to be a part of bringing Kansas into the Union as a free state. So a party of about 15 to 17 men, depending on the source, kind of all pitched in their funds to create this town company, unnamed. It was just a scout party at the time, and they headed out and ended up on the west side of the West Branch of the Walnut River. And when they got here, the story goes that Captain Cracklin took a look at the surrounding sites, and it was maybe about sunset and everything looked golden, and he said El Dorado. And later accounts he gives a story about where the name came from, because my thought was, why don't we call it Eureka? But they had been hearing a lot about looking for new El Dorados in the news, and just about every group that was headed out was looking for a new El Dorado, like the new place that would give them success in their new ventures. And so I think this was very much in kind of the vernacular. It was in the newspapers at the time. And so I think he just was like El Dorado, and it stuck. The group of men voted on using that as the name. And in a later story, Cracklin relates where the name came from. And he says it's based on the story of the Gilded Man, El Hombre Dorado, and the search for the City of Gold. The earliest trading post, a little south of here along what is identified as the Cherokee Trail. And that trading post was here before the town was here. And then Martin's Dry Goods Store was another kind of trading post which grew up to serve the community as early as maybe 1858, 1859.
We're here at Bella Vista Cemetery in El Dorado. Bella Vista and Sunset Lawns are full of pioneers and the founders and residents of El Dorado. And all people who like history seem to like cemeteries, and I'm certainly one of those people. Each stone tells a story and brings up curiosity about that person. Our cemeteries in El Dorado have everyone from Civil War soldiers all the way up to the present, and they tell so many stories, not just about one group or one people, but about lots of people who made up our community. Diverse people, including African Americans who came, former slaves who came to Butler County and settled right here where we are now. Reuben Waller was a former slave and later a Buffalo soldier who lived most of his life in El Dorado, dying in 1945 at the age of 105. Among the many things that Waller saw in his lifetime, he was present at the surrender of Robert E. Lee to Ulysses Grant at Appomattox in 1865. Later, during the Indian Wars, he rode to the relief of George Forsyth's scouts at the Battle of Beecher Island, Colorado Territory in September 1868. Charles Selig was one of the youngest soldiers to serve in the Civil War when he joined the 2nd Kansas along with his father. Joining at the age of 12, he served 3.5 years as a drummer boy. After the war, he came to El Dorado, where he worked for Dr. Allen White, the father of William Allen White. Later, Selig became the mayor, a councilman, and finally, a delegate to the 1908 Republican National Convention. William Allen White was an American newspaper editor, author, politician, and a spokesman for Middle America. Born in Emporia, he lived most of his childhood in El Dorado, where his parents lived near Central and Vine. White was a voice for the people of the Plains and those who were oppressed. In 1924, he ran for governor, in part to stand up to a growing rise in the Ku Klux Klan. He died in 1944 in Emporia.
William Allen White was a voice for progressive change in Kansas and the nation. At the same time he tackled the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in Kansas, he also argued for women's rights. The women of Kansas gained the right to vote in local and state elections in Kansas in 1912, which also made them eligible to serve on juries. The first women's jury of Kansas was composed entirely of El Dorado women and served in the District Court of Butler County in November 1912. The women selected for service were prominent women in the community and active members of various local chapters of organizations like the Women's Relief Corps, Women's Christian Temperance Union, Women's Rights Congress, and the Kansas Daughters of the American Revolution. The testimony lasted 2 days in the case of H. H. Bowick versus Carrie M. Shriver et al., a dispute over real estate valuation which a male jury had failed to resolve a year earlier. The women famously began their deliberations with prayer and took only 4 ballots before reaching their decision. Presiding Judge Aikman would later say that no jury ever showed keener appreciation of its responsibility, and the women were praised for their unusual attention to the evidence. Editorials about the trial and the women appeared in newspapers all over the United States. Judge Granville P. Aikman was born in 1858 in Kentucky. He came to El Dorado in 1883 as a law student, and in 1900 he became judge of the 13th Judicial District. He supported women's suffrage and stated that he desired the honor of presiding over the first trial in which the women's new rights were exercised. He appointed the first woman bailiff and instructed her to assemble a panel of women.
Wichita Natural Gas Company was actually a subsidiary of City Service. City Service was located in Bartlesville. And the way I understand it, Wichita Oil and Gas, like I said, was a subsidiary. They were sent into Kansas to look for gas and oil. And what prompted that was the gas that was found down at Augusta, that the city of Augusta had drilled in. And they'd found enough gas to run the city of Augusta, which that's what people were wanting at the time. Oil really didn't have a lot of use at the time. And so Wichita Gas came to Kansas, and Empire, which we have all heard about, they were actually sent into Oklahoma to do the production in Oklahoma for City Service. So Wichita Oil and Gas came, they sent 2 geologists to Augusta who started mapping and looking at the geology of the things, and they realized that there was an anticline running through Augusta, through that area, and that was part of the reason why they had found the gas there. And they followed this anticline on up towards El Dorado, or they felt like it went that way, from what I've read. So it was kind of an interesting story. We've all heard about the Augusta, El Dorado county wars and whatnot. Well, Augusta was the first one to find natural gas. Well, that kind of rankled the city fathers of El Dorado, so by golly, they were going to find it. And they drilled, a group of townsmen drilled one well here in El Dorado, and it was a dry hole. It had nothing but salt water in it. So the city themselves went out and leased a bunch of property, and they were going to drill a well for natural gas to run the city on. Well, both of their wells were dry holes. So since Wichita Natural Gas was in Augusta, and they felt like the anticline moved up towards El Dorado, they came up here and they leased up thousands and thousands of acres of land surrounding El Dorado. And then they went to the city fathers of El Dorado and said, hey, we'll buy your 798 acres that the city had leased up. We'll give you $800 for it. And the city fathers said, okay, that's fine, but there's a couple of stipulations. And one of those was that they were to drill one well on the city's leases, and if it did not become a marketable well, they were to drill a well on Wichita Gas's lease. And these wells had to go to 3,000 feet. Well, they drilled the first well, and it was a dry hole. So they moved over onto the Stapleton number 1, and they started down, and they hit gas and oil at about 600, 700 feet. But due to the requirements for that the city fathers had put on them, they had to drill on down towards 3,000 feet. And subsequently, they found the actual Stapleton zone at about 2,600 feet. And it was a very marketable zone. It came in at about, I believe they said 135 barrel a day, which that in turn proved to them that their anticline idea was right, and that's what started the El Dorado pool.
The 20th century saw the coming of oil to El Dorado and Butler County. At the Kansas Oil Museum, many of the things that we do have to do with the oil exploration of that period, from 1915 to 1945 and beyond.
Stapleton number 1 was the first strike that helped discover the El Dorado Oil Field. In September of 1915, the Wichita Natural Gas Company staked a test near Oil Hill on land belonging to John Stapleton. On October 6, a heavy showing of oil began at 549 feet, with the deepest pay zone hit at 2,465 feet. This discovery touched off a boom never before or since equaled in Butler County.
Stapleton, number one, like I said, proved that their geology was right. Okay, so then they just started stepping out, trying to find the boundaries of the El Dorado Pool. And they went 2 to 3 miles east and west eventually of the Stapleton. And the El Dorado Pool reached, I don't know exactly, but I'm going to say it probably reached 4 or 5 miles north of the Stapleton and probably that much to the south. So, the impact was they knew there was something here, so they just started looking, they claimed that there was like 600 wells drilled the first year after the Stapleton was found. And, you got to consider the economic boom to the area from that, because this drilling went on 24/7. It never stopped. And it's hard to tell how many rigs were actually running at one time, all the people that came to town. We've talked that El Dorado and Augusta, they were going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, there was just thousands and thousands of people coming to town, and if the guys worked at nights, they needed something to do during the day and vice versa. So it was quite a boom to everything, more than just the owners of the oil wells.
We're standing here at the site of Stapleton number 1, where in 1915 it really all began as far as oil production in El Dorado. But El Dorado is still a very vibrant community today with a population of 13,000. As you look around the community and outside the community, you can still see that the past is really present, as reminders of our past are always in front of us.
Join us next time on Rural Crossroads, where we explore another Butler County community.